part D, we need to find zeros of polynomials. And so to find zeros, it's what values of x make the equation equal 0 when y would be 0. And so we did this with quadratic equations before, the zero product property. If we need the equation to equal 0, it means either x plus 2 has to equal 0, or x minus 1 has to equal 0, or x minus 3 has to equal 0. And so we have three separate little equations that we need to solve for x. So we subtract 2 to find x is equal to 0 minus 2 is negative 2. We add 1 to find that x could be equal to positive 1. And we add 3 to see that x could equal 3. And so there are 3 zeros because there were 3 factors, 3 x's in the equation. Negative 2, 1, and 3. Now number 14, the only thing new here is that sometimes the x doesn't show up inside the parenthesis, but that still counts as a factor if there's a greatest common factor in front. So that means that x could equal 0, or x minus 3 could equal 0, or x plus 5 could equal 0. Well, x equals 0 is already solved for x. X minus 3, we have to add 3 to both sides to get x equals 3. And x plus 5, we need to subtract 5 to get x equals negative 5. And so negative 5 is a solution, 3 is a solution or a 0, and 0 is a 0. Those are the 3 zeros for this polynomial. So I'll let you do 15 and 16. In part E, we need to write a polynomial with the following roots. So a cubic polynomial function in standard form with zeros negative 2, 2, and 3. So if these are the zeros, so that means that x equals negative 2 is one of our zeros. Well, to get it into factored form, it means we need to set it equal to 0. So I need to move the 2 over to the side with the x to see that x plus 2 would equal 0. Likewise, for x equals 2, I need to set it equal to 0, so I have to subtract that 2 to make it x minus 2 equals 0. And finally, x equals 3, I need to subtract 3 to make it x minus 3 equals 0. So notice that we're just taking x minus whatever these sort of a values are. A is sometimes used for these numbers. And so our factors become x minus negative 2, which is x plus 2, x minus positive 2, there's our x minus 2, and x minus 3, x minus 3. So the cubic polynomial function, we can write it as f of x or y equals, and now we want to write each of these expressions that equal 0. So x plus 2 is a factor, and x minus 2 is a factor, and x minus 3 is a factor. So those 3 parts that equal 0, those are the factors that make up the cubic polynomial function. Now, it says we need to write it in standard form. that means that we actually have to multiply these out. Standard form doesn't want parentheses in it. So, multiplying x plus 2 times x minus 2, I'm going to FOIL these two together. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2, negative 2x. Now the inside, 2 times x, and 2 times negative 2, the last two. I still have my x minus 3. Now minus 2x and plus 2x, those two cancel each other out. They're like terms. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So this simplifies to x squared minus 4. X squared and minus 4, the negative 2x and 2x cancel out. And so my last step is I need to multiply these two expressions together. So x squared times x is x to the third. X squared times negative 3, negative 3x squared. Now we take negative 4 and distribute that. So negative 4 times x, negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 3, positive 12. So standard form is y equals x to the third minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 12. So, number 18 is a little bit easier version of that, but it's same kind of idea, except you only have 2 zeros because it's a quadratic function. So write it in factored form first, and then multiply the factors together to get standard form. So, to do that, our zeros are 3 and negative 3. So it's always x minus those numbers. So to get a 0 of 3, I have to have x minus 3 as a factor. To have negative 3 as a 0, that means I have to have x minus negative 3, or x plus 3, as a factor. And so to put this into standard form now, notice if you set each of those equal to 0 and solve, you'll get 3 and negative 3 as our zeros. To put it into standard form, x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. So I distributed the x through. Now I take the negative 3 and distribute that. Negative 3 times x and negative 3 times 3. Plus 3x minus 3x, those two terms cancel each other out. They equal 0. And we're left with x squared minus 9. So my equation is y equals x squared minus 9. Okay. So you have 2 more to do down here. Notice in number 20 you're going to repeat your factor 3 times, but then multiply them together.